Hi, and welcome to the Knitpicks podcast. This is Stacey. I am the outreach director at Knitpicks, and I'm here with my friend Lee. Hi, Lee.
Hi, Stacey. I'm Lee. I'm the Knitpicks graphic designer. I design all the books and patterns.
Yay. We're finally getting some nice, cool weather now. It's so nice. I'm so excited.
Lit a candle this morning.
Ooh, you're getting all cozy for the fall.
Had a hot toddy last night.
Wow.
I dive in there.
Anyway, so what have you been up to?
Some knitting for sure. Some sewing. I'm sewing some flannel pants because that's what I want to wear around the house. Not usually outside, but around the house, flannel pants.
I would not blame you if you want to wear them outside.
I mean, that's something I don't want to, but love getting a thrifted flannel sheet. A nice, so if you can find one that's not too worn out, that looks like it didn't really get used very much, it can be a nice thick flannel. Make some pants out of that. Good stuff.
It's like being in bed all day long.
Yeah, I don't like the idea. Wait, what's the thing called from 15 years ago where it's like a blanket that you wear with arms?
A swanket? I don't remember.
Yeah. Oh, so I don't like the idea of like an actual
Snuggie.
like, blanket. Snuggie. That's it. Snuggie.
Producer Andi here. This blanket is from 30 Rock.
Oh.
It's the parody of the Snuggie.
That's so familiar.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I apparently I watch a lot of 30 Rock.
Slanket, Snuggie, what? Yeah, it sounded very familiar to me because I did too. So I don't like it. I don't like kind of too much fabric getting all like tangled up and not feeling like I can get up and walk around easily. But I do like pants and tops that are like fitted and have sleeves and legs that are made out of a blanket material. So yes,
Nice.
Yeah, that's my jam. Also made some good food. The garden is very wet, so I haven't been doing much gardening. What have you been up to?
Not too much. Just doing some knitting, of course. I haven't been sewing it. I haven't been sewing. I got some new fabric, and I was all excited about sewing, and then I just kind of didn't bring it up. It was easier just to sit on the couch. So, I was working on our Axiom that we are doing the knit along for, and we're going to grab Andi in here too, and we're going to give you a bit of an update on Axiom.
Yeah.
So I started with the sleeves, and I'm about, 15 inches in, I think, for the sleeves. I think the total is 20 inches. I can't remember. Right now I'm just happily doing my increases on each end. So, and I'm doing both of them two at a time. So I don't have to be stuck in sleeve land at the end of the project. So that was my reasoning.
You're really speeding along. I got stuck in swatch land. I had to knit 3 different swatches to get gauge. It took me a few tries. Well, one of them I made the mistake of I thought it was dry enough and I measured it.
Oh, I've done that.
And then I was like, oh no, I got to go up a needle size. And then I went up a needle size and I was getting 17 stitches to the inch instead of 18. And I was like, how did I skip so many stitches ahead? And then I went back to the second swatch I knit and I measured it again and it was fully dry at that point. And it was the 18 stitches over 4 inches. And I was like, my impatience just gave me an hour more of work. It was a bit absurd, but yeah.
That's actually kind of why I started with the sleeves first, because I kind of use that as my swatch. I know that's not the way to probably do it, but because if I knit a couple inches of the sleeve after the ribbing, I can check my gauge, and it's kind of a probably more natural gauge for me than doing a gauge swatch. But we don't recommend that, so you should always do a gauge swatch. So.
Yeah, because if you were like me, I had to go up a needle size to match the suggested.
Oh, interesting. I went down one.
Oh, but if I had just started my sleeves on the suggested needle size, I would have had to rip back quite a bit more than
yeah
my 3 swatches I did. I'm doing mine with a cropped fit and a fitted waist. So I'm starting my body and I'm cheating a little bit. I'm making at the waist the smallest size, and then I'm just gonna increase up to my own size. So right now I'm doing my ribbing for the waist, and it's going very quickly because it's the smallest size in the pattern.
I'm jealous. But yeah, and then I'm going to do the body in the round, and then we're going to have a blog post on like tips and tricks on doing that, correct?
Yeah, that's already up right now. It
Yay.
walks you through like what you need to think about if you want to convert a pattern to being in the round, just sort of like the questions to ask. And like obviously it works with Axiom because otherwise we would not have said you could do it. But it kind of gives you guidelines to use like on other patterns if you want to try this again in the future. And then it breaks down sort of the very small amount of math you need to do to like remove those selvage stitches and update your stitch counts to like add everything together. And we even included like a few points, like the actual adjusted stitch count so you can check your work. But the idea is to like motivate you to figure out the math on your own.
So you can replicate it again.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like doing a sewing pattern. You need to, keep notes because you might want to do this sweater pattern again.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to definitely look at that. I guess I forgot that it went up already. So I'm going to take a look at that and make sure that I'm doing it correctly. So 'cause I haven't converted in a round in a while. So, because usually the time when I pick a sweater pattern, it's usually, to be honest, usually a cardigan. So and it's usually all in one piece. So that's kind of what I look for, but I'm excited. Yay, Axiom. So if you want to join us on our little Axiom knit along, we have a hashtag on Instagram. It's hashtag Axiom KAL. So KAL. And we hope you'll show pictures. I want to see like all the different kinds of variations of design. Even my mom, who is not an Instagram user, is very excited to do Axiom. So it's going to be a fun knit along. So.
And if you're more of a Facebook user than Instagram user, like hashtags don't work as well, but you can still like upload pictures of your own projects in the comments when we post about ours. So we hope people will share there too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's all I've been working on, to be honest, is just my Axiom. I have a tendency I like to switch around between projects, but I've been really into using, a high desert tweed. I really love knitting with it. So that's all I want to knit with right now. So that's why I'm just working on that. But I think you're working on a few more projects.
Yeah, well, the one I can't put down all weekend was my Swish Pops cardigan because
Yay!
I can't get enough of that Swish Pops. And kind of the opposite of you knitting cardigans in one piece and converting piece patterns to in the round patterns. I specifically chose a cardigan that's knit in pieces for this because I'm really hoping to get some cool pooling happening with the Swish Pops on the front panels. Because if you knit a cardigan in pieces, then you have each of the two front panels that are much more narrow. I'm hoping that happens. And I'm getting pretty close to finishing the back right now. And the back obviously is too wide to get that pooling. So it's not quite as fun. But the stitch pattern, it's fun, but it's a little bit slow because it's like patterning on every row. Well, every right side row. It's like a twisted stitch, cable kind of texture pattern. Okay. So it's charted and every row I have to look at the chart, and so it's not like the fastest knitting ever, but it is looking cool. It's we'll post pictures of everything as usual. Show notes will have links to everything we talk about here, including the Axiom blog post and all that. So yeah, that's what I've been working on for fun. I've also been working on a couple of work knitting projects. One that I'll just quickly tease, I might talk about at the end of this podcast because it relates to something else, so I won't talk about that now. Yeah, and then the other thing I've been working on for work knitting is I've designed 2 patterns for our 12 weeks of gifting free pattern set, which is coming out now. It's the first couple are out, I think. Stacey, do you want to catch everyone up on what that is in case you don't know?
Yeah, so 12 weeks of gifting. This is our yearly fun project. We've been doing it I think we looked it up, and it's almost been 10 years that we've been doing this. So for 12 weeks before the major holidays in December, we give a free pattern once a week. When we first started, it was like our gift to everyone. We are going to make one of our older patterns free for 1 week, and then, we put them in order of like difficulty, so or time it would spend to knit them. So things that would take many, many hours, like blankets, large projects, were going to be the first week. And then we'd slowly go a little bit easier each week till the last one, which would be something that you could conceivably do in an afternoon. Like you're invited to a holiday party and you need a gift for the hostess, or you have an extra gift. Your sister brought their boyfriend of like 2 weeks to the party and you're like, "Oh, I need a gift for him." So not that that's ever happened.
Very specific.
I know. It wasn't my sister. It wasn't my sister. It was my niece. But so that was the idea behind it. And then as we went along, we were like, well, we don't want to, we want to give more. So we teamed up with some designers, and they created patterns for us. So these are still perfectly free. We still put them in order of complexity, time spent. But we had a lot of fun with it and a lot of new patterns that will be free. And it's always really fun. Like I said, we've been doing it for many years, so we've got a bunch of patterns, and these patterns stay free forever. So they're still on the site. So if you want to go back and find an old 12 weeks of gifting, it's still there. So it's been really fun. We used to, it was knitting and crochet in the first few, because that was before We Crochet came along. So now We Crochet also has been doing it for the past couple of years. So they do a 12 weeks of gifting of just crochet patterns. So if you are someone who knits and crochets or just crochets, you can definitely check those out. They've got their first 2 up for this season as well. So so that's 12 weeks of gifting.
Yeah.
And one of the other fun things is that sometimes the employees get involved with creating patterns. And I've written a couple of patterns, but to be honest, my favorite one is the one I did for 12 weeks of gifting a couple years ago, called the Sugar Twist Cowl. And it was just a really, really fun. I just did like a lot of math and I felt like a real designer. And it's just like a cowl. It's in the round with wrapped stitches, and it looks cool on both sides, and it's in bulky yarn. See, I use bulky yarns too. And it was just really fun. So, and I know that I made sure that I asked Lee to get involved with the 12 weeks of gifting, because these are perfect patterns for her to play around with too. So even though she didn't follow my instructions for the final one.
We'll get into that. Sometimes directions are hard when you're
So we've got 2 patterns up on the site right now. It is the Easy Brava blanket. So it's a very large blanket, but it's easy. So it's a fun project to get started. It just might take a little bit longer to do than some of the quicker projects. And that's by Alison Griffith. And it's in our Brava recycle yarn. So,
which is named after our pets.
Yes.
So therefore it's one of our favorite yarns.
and one of your pets yarn is in there.
It's featured.
So. But and it's a fun one, and it's very easy, just kind of striped Brava recycle. It's a good price point if you want to make a large blanket. And then the second one is that's just going up. When you listen to this podcast, it'll have just gone up, I think, the day before. But it's a fine line scarf, and that's got a really fun directional lines all over it to make a really fun scarf. So
and something I like about the 12 weeks is like we put a lot of thought into the order of like we say like longest to fastest or hardest to easiest, but it's like the blanket is very easy, but it's big, so it'll take a while. And then the scarf is much smaller, but it's more complicated. So it'll be slower knitting. So whether you're someone who likes a mindless knit and you have a couple months, you can knit something very easy and mindless as a gift if you start soon, or you can knit slower and pay more attention to your knitting because it's more complicated, and make a longer knit that way that's not going to use as much yarn or be blanket size. So that's all the patterns kind of vary a lot in like difficulty level, also in like type of object. Most of, at least since I've been here, it seems like there's usually at least a couple like kind of toys or like home deck things that aren't like wearable, as well as some accessories and blankets and lots
gifts
of
for
kind of
everybody.
different types of things. Yeah. And the idea is obviously you can knit them for gifts to other people, but you can also knit them for gifts for yourself as well.
Yeah,
So,
those are the best gifts. So
yeah, things that you might want to make for yourself. Well, just grab the pattern and hold on to it till next year when you have more time. But lots of different kinds of gifts for different kinds of people.
Yeah, we've had some really fun ones over the years too. I didn't realize it until I was looking back through, but one of our most popular patterns like ever is the 15th Street Wrap. And that is one that started as a 12 weeks of gifting pattern. So we sell and lots of downloads of that. And we've got kits with different colors. Alexis, our boss, is obsessed with that pattern and has been since it came out. And in fact, she has a pattern that will have been released, I believe, today.
The day this podcast is dropping. Yeah,
that is her take on it with a different yarn. So
that's called the 4th Street Wrap.
Yeah,
same kind of stitch pattern and idea, but like different weights.
Her own little stuff. But yeah, like honestly, funny story. Since that pattern came out, I've known Alexis since that pattern came out, and she has knit that pattern so many times, like at least 5 or 6 times, I would say.
Wow,
so,
and it's a large item.
Yeah,
that's a lot of stitches.
So she's constantly playing with like different ways of doing it. So, but that's the fun thing. We try to keep like a nice, good canvas of patterns that you can make your own. Like we were saying, we encourage creativity in the patterns, but yeah. So then this year we've got 10 more coming, including 2 by Lee. You want to talk about like kind of hint at him?
Yeah. So I believe it's going to be the 4th pattern. So like 2 weeks from today ish. Is going to be my first one, and that's going to be the one that takes a little bit longer. It is a bulky weight. It's knit in Wool of the Andes bulky. You could also use Wool of the Andes bulky superwash if you prefer. That's often preferred choice for gift knitting. If you're gifting it to someone else, superwash is nice. So that'll work too. And it's an accessory. That's all I'll say. It's something I had a lot of fun designing. It's a very simple in terms of stitch pattern. It's a simple stitch pattern in a shape that I had fun figuring out and making work. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. I like it a lot. So I hope that some of you will enjoy knitting that. Definitely. Well, if you knit any of our patterns, always tag us on Instagram or put them on Ravelry's projects. So I love to see your projects. So I would love to see this knit for other people and stuff.
Yeah, I have one coming up too, actually. It's going to be one of the later ones, not the last one, but I think second to last or third to last. I can't remember. That was really fun too, to figure out. This one is going to be a home decor project. It was really fun. And I think this would make this project would be a really quick, very fun gift to give for a housewarming or for a holiday party or for yourself. So I had fun trying to figure out how I was going to make it work. I had an idea in my head. I was trying to figure it out. So I'm a real designer.
I love going from the idea in your head to a physical thing that you're holding in your hands in real life. It's what I love about designing. And then I also designed the last pattern, which as you now know means it's the quickest pattern. So we have 2 different super bulky weight yarns that we're going to talk about in a minute when we talk about what's new today, because they just launched. So we wanted to have the last pattern be super bulky, right? So it's like size 15 needles, very fast to knit. So I was like, yes, I can do that. I love designing in super bulky. So I basically had this as my assignment, right, to design something very quick and fast and easy. But
Supposed
I
to take
just
a couple hours, Lee.
yeah, I kind of was excited about this idea I had. I just kind of went in a direction that was not the quickest, easiest, simplest direction. But I finished designing it on like a Thursday, at the end of the week, and sat on it all weekend. And then on Monday, I was like, "What was I thinking?" So we work at home on Mondays and we work in the office on Tuesday. So I went into the office on Tuesday. I was like, "Okay, Stacey, gotta talk to you about this pattern. I think I've made a huge mistake. Like I think I need to start over. I don't think it's gonna work. This is not quick. It's not I like it, but it's not a one night kind of a quick knit.
Right.
No, I stepped back. I looked at what I had done. So I started over. So now I'm really happy with what I ended. I started from scratch. I was like, simple. Okay.
Yes.
one single ball of the super bulky yarn, size 15 needles, easy. Keep the pattern as short as possible, and that means it's simple to make. I'm incapable of doing a pattern that looks like you've seen it before, basically. So I had to do something interesting on one part of it, which I won't. I can say what it is, right? Vaguely. So it's a hat. It's a simple hat, super bulky. I had to do something a little bit interesting with the crown because there had to be something. So there's a chart for the crown, and it's also written out too, charted and written.
Yeah.
So
it's still easy.
I think that makes it a nice gift, right? It's still quick to make. You can still make it in one night, probably a movie and a half or something, depending on how fast you are with the super bulky weight. Some people are faster than others with that kind of weight yarn. It slows you down a little bit, but has an interesting crown, looks cool. I think I met the assignment with my second try.
I did a do-over. You did. But and your first incarnation will see the light of day at some point.
I will turn that into like a regular free pattern as not part of the 12 weeks. So it will eventually be on the site. Yeah.
I really liked it, but I was just like, no, this is supposed to be done in a couple hours.
No, this isn't. This is not what we asked. Sorry about that. It all turned out good in the end.
Yeah, it's really fun to work with the staff on like doing designs and like being able to flex our creative muscles in a fun way. And that kind of fills in like some of the gaps. Like most of the time we get these patterns from the designers. They might be leftovers from other submissions or other things that we really liked but couldn't quite fit into different collections, or it just didn't quite fit, but it fit perfectly in 12 weeks of gifting. Or I will ask like a designer if like they're interested in designing something for this specifically. I kind of go back and forth. Depends on what we have and what we need and what we feel like we need. I remember a couple years ago, we had a lot of blanket patterns because I had so many designers who submitted blanket patterns. And I'm like, I love all of these. I cannot fit them all into one collection. So let's put them all out for 12 weeks of gifting. And yeah, some people might say, like, you don't need to knit all of the 12 weeks of gifting patterns for Christmas, but it is fun. Like, you can pick and choose which one you want, whether you want something very simple or you want something a little bit more complex or anything at all. So we try to keep a nice variety. So,
yeah. And it's fun. I think the last couple of years we've had kind of a stash busting-y collection happening around the end of the year. And that's like a really good collection to be like, okay, multiple of these patterns don't quite fit in this collection, but because the call was for Stash Busters, that means a lot of them are smaller projects, good for gifting. They can fit really nicely into 12 weeks.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's great. Which is where a lot of these came from this time. There's a couple other ones that were scattered in there that I specifically asked for something certain Well, I asked you for a couple. Like, no, I want this. Lee, can you make this kind of project and this kind of project and make sure it's easy? And then I asked myself, oh, what should you, we have an empty spot here. What can you design? So, but yeah. So if you want to check out the 12 weeks of gifting patterns, the new one goes up new one goes up every Tuesday. And you'll see an email that'll alert you, and it'll be all over our socials like Instagram and Facebook and all of that. So check it out and get those needles going for Christmas or any other holiday.
Mhm.
And I think we're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to come back and talk about all the new fun stuff on the site today. And welcome back. So if you've looked at the website today, and I assume because you're listening to this, you go to the website every day. But if you went today, you would see we have a lot of new stuff, like new yarns, new books, new patterns. It's all sorts of fun stuff on the site today. So yeah, I'm so excited. This is always like everyone's getting back into knitting mode, I feel like. So we want to make sure that everyone has what they need to do that.
I think we have more patterns launching today than any other like single day this year. It's a lot. It's a lot today.
Yeah. Well, the first one we're going to talk about is Déjà Yarn. So this is our turning into an annual collection. It's our Stash Buster collection. And the last couple have been very colorwork heavy or very multicolors of yarn heavy, which isn't a bad thing. You're using up small amounts of yarn. But in this one, I wanted something a little bit different. So what I came up with is solid colored ones. So the thought process was when you buy like a sweater quantity of yarn without a pattern in mind, or for a blanket, or of just a large amount of yarn. Maybe you found a great yarn on sale and then you knit the sweater and then you have skeins left over. Well, these are all for solid colored yarns. So, because I kind of do that sometimes. I find a great deal. I'm like, oh, I'll buy this much yarn for this full sweater, and then I'll end up finding a pattern for a vest. So I have all this extra skeins. My deep dark secret's out there. I buy quantities of yarn and then I don't use it all up. So I created a whole collection around that.
Yeah, maybe zero of you out there can relate to this. But maybe a couple of you can relate. Maybe.
But these are also for if you just happen to have like a couple of skeins of yarn. Like maybe you bought some yarn to try out and you didn't have a project in mind. We have projects for you. So these are all under 200 grams of yarn. That's always our cutoff. So,
and a lot of them are even under 100 grams too.
Yeah.
So if you have a single skein, there's plenty of options for that too.
Yeah. And so we've got a lot of really fun patterns, hats, cowls, mitts, lots of mitts this time. So we had a lot of fun putting it together. We had a lot of fun at the photo shoot. It was very cold, surprisingly, since it was in the middle of summer. But I think the shots turned out very beautiful. So I'm excited about it. So we're gonna go probably more into detail next episode. Because we will have a very special designer on with us.
Every designer is very special. What are you?
They are very special, and I love this person. So I'm very excited. So we'll probably go into more detail on Déjà next week, and pick out some of our favorites and stuff we want to knit. But we have a couple other collections.
Yeah,
at least one other one today. That's Heirloom Cable Knits in Tweed. So that is our 5-pattern ebook. We're hanging on to Cool Tweed Fall. We are making it happen. Hashtag
use
Cool Tweed
that
Fall.
Hashtag. Last I checked, I don't think anyone else but us had used the hashtag. So come on, use the hashtag.
Make me happy. But this was a fun collection. These are all patterns that were previously released, but in some cases they've had improvements made for them.
Some of them were very old.
Yes.
And some of them were designed in a way that not the way we currently design patterns. So we just kind of modernized a couple of them, the garments in particular.
Yeah.
So the if you have previously had the ebooks or books or patterns that the old sweater patterns are from, which are Galloway and Fiddlehead. Galloway is a pullover and Fiddlehead is a cardigan. If you had issues, or maybe you read friends had issues, hopefully it'll be a more pleasant experience now. That particularly Galloway was designed in a way that all the shaping was done on the charts with like lines drawn on the charts, which is kind of difficult to read, depending on your particular eyesight and if you have it printed out or on a screen, and also which size you're following, because some of the colors were easier to see than some of the other colors of lines.
It also made it difficult for people who don't have a color printer. So if they were printing out the pattern.
So we're trying to make things more accessible in general. A lot of our updates involve expanding sizes and expanding accessibility in different ways, kind of. And so with this one, we wanted to make it easier for more people to be able to use. So we've written out all the shaping, which rows decrease how many stitches and everything, instead of that being drawn onto the charts. So hopefully it's a bit more easy and possible to follow.
And I want to give 2 big shout outs to my lovely sample knitters, Barbara and Laura, who have been immensely helpful on this project because they both gave a lot of great feedback on these patterns. So thank you, Barbara and Laura. I love you.
Yeah,
and Lee loves
helpful.
You too. Yeah, and then the other patterns were newer patterns, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with them. We just wanted to kind of show them off because we have all these great new tweed yarns. So one of my favorites was the forge scarf. It is one we've knit a couple of times. It's we knit it in Wool the Andi Sport and High Desert Sport, but I thought putting it in a DK weight would be a fun idea, and we had City Tweed DK, so had that knit up. It's in this wonderful pink color, and it shows the cable. The cable pattern is simple enough. The tweed doesn't overpower it, I don't think. So it's a great, fun project. And just to let you know, if you've already previously purchased these patterns, these will all be automatically updated in your pattern library. So you're not missing out anything we're talking about if you've already purchased it. So we wouldn't make you buy it twice. But we do have them all in a collection. If there's another couple of patterns that you were interested in, we have them all in a 5-pattern collection. So
yeah, and most of the previous samples, not all of them, were done in not tweeds. So for example, the hat that's in the collection was done in regular stroll, so we had it reknit in the stroll tweed. Same with the scarf you were just talking about. So yeah, we called it cable knits in tweed because you can of course knit the cable knits not in tweed if you prefer, but we love how they look in tweed. So we wanted to show off our tweeds, show off the cables and the tweeds, and so we decided to go for old classic patterns that we feel like deserved a highlight. Speaking of tweeds, Stacey, I think there might be another tweed yarn you want to talk about.
If you go back through our archive of podcasts, I distinctly remember saying something about getting colors of Woodland Tweed and how that was my dream. Woodland Tweed was, and still is, a bare yarn. It is alpaca wool tweed. It is one of my favorite yarns. And now we have colors, and I'm so excited. It was like designed just for me. It was all in woodsy colors, which kind of went with the name. And I'm so excited. I still love this yarn so much. I'm not crying. But it was, but I literally was. I did mention it. I remembered this like not too long ago. I did mention it. I want to say a year and a half ago when we started doing the podcast on a regular basis of like, if we come out with colors of Woodland Tweed, you can thank me because I have been pounding this drum for since we got the bare yarn. I knit an entire sweater in the bare yarn, and I love it so much. So
we even had it in a couple of collections, the bare, and you would always say like, "Oh, if we had color." Yep. Yeah, and agreed that we
Yeah.
all thought it would be great. It just, I don't know, for whatever reason, it kept kind of someday. And now finally that day is here.
I bullied Alexis into making sure that was released. So Woodland Tweed, aka Stacey's Dream Yarn. It is 13 colors. We had a lot of fun with the names, as we always do, especially when we have a theme. And this one was stuff you can find in the woods, basically. So it's really more neutrally earthy tones. There is just some wonderful colors. I love this. I love everything about this. One of my favorite colors is Black Trumpet. I knit the Morrison beanie in that. That's an old pattern of ours that it should be up on the site within the next week or so. We'll be releasing like a bunch of patterns that are in Woodland Tweed, and that's the one I knit. And even though it is a dark yarn, the cables pop on it. It is gorgeous, gorgeous yarn. So I cannot wait to show that off. And I know one person in the office is using it for their Axiom knit. That's Jen, so not a secret. The problem is that she wanted to do it in a color that we have a sweater knit up in, and I had taken all of those skeins of Pool Plunge, a little bit of a sneak peek of one of the sweaters that's coming out, and that is the deep, beautiful blue color. So she saw she saw my Morrison beanie in Black Trumpet, and she ended up going with that instead because I took all the blue. So anyway, it's a gorgeous color. It reminds me of Aurora Heather, actually, which is like my favorite color of Will of the Andes too. So it's like a black and green. Sorry, I just really love that color. So, and this yarn. So sorry, I've kind of taken over the conversation. Do you have anything you want to talk about with Woodland Tweed?
Well, I've never actually knit with Woodland Tweed, but I do love it. I love how it looks and feels. So I plan to someday. There's just so many yarns.
I know. That's the problem. It's like between this and High Desert Tweed, I'm having problems choosing what to knit next. I think I said in the last podcast that I was knitting stuff I was knitting were stuff I couldn't talk about because they were new yarns or new patterns. This was one of them. It's the Morrison beanie. So, and you'll get to see my handiwork on the website soon.
Yeah, and that's again that little collection of Woodland Tweed patterns is another kind of mostly reknits of older patterns, and that's not out yet when this podcast drops, but it'll be 1 to 2 weeks later.
Yeah, very soon.
Kind of a little mini launch. Yeah,
there'll be one new pattern, and I'm also excited for that one. So we'll talk about it definitely more when that is launched because it's very exciting. And not just because it's all my yarn. Then there's another new yarn that was also, I feel, designed just for me. And that's Hawthorne DK. We are listening people who are asking for heavier weight sock yarn. We used to carry Hawthorne Sport. It didn't sell super well, so it ended up being discontinued. But we heard the cries. We heard you wanted heavier sock yarn. So we have Hawthorne DK now, and I think there's 18 colors that are just taken from the regular Hawthorne lines, all of them. So it's like our top selling ones, and it's lovely. It was really nice. I actually knit a pair of socks in it for an upcoming pattern to be named soon, and it was really fun to knit a pair of socks on size 4 needles. Instead of my usual like 1 or 2s. So went very fast is what I'm saying.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like I could knit some socks in that and not even hold it double.
I know. It'll be your first.
I love knitting socks with regular Hawthorne fingering held double, and Hawthorne DK is kind of like similar but better. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want heavier socks, or if you want to knit like a sweater and you don't want to knit it in fingering weight, this is DK weight. It makes great sweater. I love Hawthorne for all sorts of projects, and I do have a couple of sweaters in Hawthorne that I really love, and I'm again so many choices to choose from on the yarn. It's like so many of my favorite things. available at once, and I don't know how to choose my next project. So too much. But then we have a couple of yarns that are designed just for Lee, I want to say.
Yeah, I don't knit all my projects in super bulky yarn, but I love a good super bulky accessory, and we have two new ones. So the first
I know,
one
it's
very
crazy.
exciting. It's called Fluff of the Andes, and the reason it's called that is because it's the exact same wool as Wool of the Andes. And of course, Wool of the Andes exists in many weights, including bulky, but not super bulky. But we didn't want to call this Wool of the Andes super bulky because all the Wool of the Andes yarns are this particular Peruvian highland wool, plied, like a regular plied yarn, spun and plied. But Fluff of the Andes is actually a single ply, so it's not a plied yarn like the Wool of the Andes yarns are. It's just a single, so it's kind of a little bit more like knitting with roving. That's just kind of twisted roving, so it's all twisted together. It's a yarn. It's not roving.
Fluff.
It's yarn, but it's not plied. So it's just one single strand.
Single ply.
Kind of. It's single ply. So which makes it different from all the other Wool of the Andes. So that's why we wanted to give it its own name, and we had a fun naming meeting where it took us a while to come up with Fluff of the Andes because we weren't quite sold on it. We kind of said it as a joke. It was like a jokey name idea, and then the more we talked about other names and circled around, we kept kind of coming back to it like, Fluff of the Andes. I think it works actually.
Naming yarns
yarn.
Naming yarns is one of the most difficult things to do.
It really is. It really is. There's so many factors because obviously so many names have already been taken, not just by us, by any yarn company. So if ever you're like, why would you name it this and not this? Well, the answer is probably that was already taken, right? So Fluff of the Andes, we felt like it calls back to its origin of Wool of the Andes, Peruvian wool. And it's fluffy. So it's perfect.
So fluffy.
It's so fluffy. Yeah, it's very fluffy. As I kind of talked about earlier, I'm designing a 12 weeks of gifting hat pattern in it on size 15 needles. It's so squishy. It's so warm. Love knitting with it. Colors. It's really cool seeing like the heathered colors on a super bulky single ply because the heathers kind of look different. Like you see the individual heathers kind of more.
Yeah,
than you do on a regular pattern.
It was crazy when we got those samples in. I'm like, oh, okay.
And the colors are the Wool of the Andes colors. Like we got our palette from looking at Wool of the Andes colors and coming up with a cohesive palette of colors that would make sense in a super bulky line. Yeah, and so it matches. So you can make a matching sweater out of worsted and matching hat out of super bulky, and they'll be the same color. But it's really interesting how they're like the same but different at the same time, just because of that different texture and particularly, I was walking through the office last week and the solar flare heather caught my eye, and I was like, "Oh my god, that color is amazing! It looks so good in the super bulky. Like, I must have it." It's cool. It's cool seeing colors and different structures like that. Yeah. So that was really fun to kind of develop that line of yarns. The other one that's also a spin-off is the super bulky Alla Prima solids, which Alla Prima had previously only existed in a hand-painted multicolor line of colors. And we decided we wanted some solids.
Matching solids, in fact.
Matching, yes. Yeah, so we took the solid colors out of the multicolored palettes. We grabbed them, grabbed those colors, and we made them into solids. So
that was a long meeting as well.
That was fun. So you can totally mix and match. You can make fun super bulky accessories with like one hank of multicolored and one ball of solid in some way or another, striped.
Yeah. I like it when you can stripe it with like a hand paint, so it's not so out there, but it's kind of, you get the stripes. If you're doing like I was thinking like a striped hat or a scarf, you can do like one solid and then the multicolor and just kind of tone it down a little bit. Not that you ever would, Lee, but
Not
sometimes
that
I
I
would.
would. Yeah, or
But
like
sometimes
a
I do.
trim, like the body and the trim or something, or like even like scarf with like fringe. You could do like a solid color scarf with like multicolored fringe for like a fun
Yeah.
pop it. So that's
But
something
you didn't bring up what the best part of this yarn line was.
Yeah. So this particular yarn naming meeting happened on a day when I wasn't in the office. So I was on the meeting on Zoom, but I sometimes when it's an in-person meeting and you're kind of the only person on Zoom or whatever on a screen, you don't really feel like you're part of the meeting. You can't hear everything, you know how that works. So everyone was having this fun, super talkative meeting, and I was kind of just like half paying attention because I couldn't really hear everything that was happening. And then all of a sudden, this yarn gets stuck in front of the camera, and all these voices are like, "Lee," it's like, "What? Yeah, I do love that color. Yes, you're right. That is a color that I love." And I didn't really understand what was happening. And what they were saying was, "We're gonna name this color Lee." So it shows up in the office in the label. Well, I'm the one designing labels actually. So the information gets given to me to put on the labels. I'm like, "Oh, that's my name on the label. That's my yarn." That's fun. So no, I didn't name it after myself. My coworkers named it after me, which is much
No, I would never.
better.
I didn't think that. I just thought it was great. I remember that meeting.
I'm letting the listeners know when they see it on the label. I didn't do it, but I'm super happy about it.
It's always
I might be designing a hat in it even.
Yes, I would make sure you would. Yeah, I talk about the yarn naming meetings being like difficult. Color meetings are really fun, but we do run dry, and that's how we end up with some very fun names. So
yeah. I think most of our funnest names come from like running out of names and being like, okay, we need to think outside the box.
Yeah, here's a fun fact because I have a yarn named after me, sort of, and that a color, and that is in the Simply Wool. We decided that all of the colors would start with W, and all of the Simply Wool alpaca or Simply Alpaca colors would start with A. So that is why you see both an Alexis for A, and that's named after our beloved boss, and then there's Winkle, because Winklepleck is a silly word, but Winkle is a silly word, but at least it's actually a word. So anyway, so that is my color of Simply Wool. And it kind of fits me. I like that color a lot. So just like this one fits you. Yeah. Oh, naming colors.
Yeah, I know there have been some, well, obviously the Brava Recycle are named after our pets. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
And I know there was one line that's kind of all like old-timey human names, and I know that a couple of those were like people's kids, like coworkers.
Yeah, Alpaca
kids.
Cloud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Slip some the Alpaca Cloud, we were naming it after Victorian literature for a while, and then it kind of morphed into just really nice names. So little inside baseball for y'all of trying to name yarns.
It's a little bit easier when you have a theme to work within instead of just like anything. Because when it's anything, then you always end up on foods because colors. You're like, what foods are these colors? And not every kind of food really works nicely.
Believe me, people have tried. But because we were used to have these color meetings before lunch too, and that was always everyone was hungry and like, all right, we want food, and we're just going to name these all food things that we want to eat right now. So anyway, beyond that, we have more yarns on the site, and we're not done yet. We're not done
there's
yet.
More coming in the future.
About a month.
I'm gonna tease this in a way that if you have a puzzle solving brain, you might be able to come up with something. So I'm knitting a new sample of my Spumoni pattern, which is a hat pattern, which is on the website. It's been on for months and months. It's originally designed in Felici. And it is, I don't only knit in super bulky. It's Felici held single, fingering weight, small needles. It's a hat, and it was designed for Felici. And when we got this new yarn in, I was like, oh, Spumoni would work perfect in this new yarn. And I was right. It's a perfect fit. It's this new yarn. It looks fabulous on the Spumoni hat. No modifications. So it's going to be the same pattern, just another sample. So if you look at that Spumoni hat, you might be able to get a sense of what kind of yarn this might be.
Yeah, intriguing. And then because Alexis was feeling generous and she brought a yarn out for me of Woodland Tweed, she also brought one out for our producer, Andi. It is a yarn that was available in Bear. So it is yarn that you can find on the site. So if you want to dig in, and this is coming in some really fun colors.
Really, really fun.
I think people are really going to enjoy this. So that's it for the teases.
I'm digging it.
Yeah.
No, it's not for everybody, but I like it a lot too.
Lee gave a hint, so I will give one hint too. It's a style of yarn that you will find a lot in vintage patterns.
Ooh, that's why it's an Andi yarn.
Yes.
And yeah, the colors are crazy bright. They are beautiful. I love them.
Not all of them. I feel like there's a good variety because I'm thinking about making a garment in this yarn, and I was looking through the colors, and there's some nice neutrals too. It's a nice variety.
I guess I just only see the bright ones when I walk by
they
the
do
yarn.
stand out.
They are very eye-catching. So yeah, so that's it for, well, not it. We've got always constantly stuff going on, but yeah.
It's enough for today though.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
So all of these items that we talked about, so much stuff, you can find all of those on the website. And we also have a catalog that should be showing up on your mailboxes soon. And it's gorgeous. So it's fun. So check it out.
And as usual, everything is linked in the show notes. Go to knitpicks.com, go to the blog to find the show notes or your podcast app. Also, make sure if you're on Instagram or Facebook, always tag us, especially if you're doing that knit along. Hashtag and add us so we can see it because we're super excited to see all your knits.
It's always the best part of checking out what we find on the hashtags and stuff. So
yeah, for sure.
This podcast was originally created by Kelly Petkin.
It is produced and hosted by me, Lee Meredith, and Stacey Winklebuck.
Produced by Andi Satterland with additional production and editing by Chase Ryan.
We recorded this episode in the Pacific Northwest, where we're excited for new yarn.
From everyone here at Knitpicks, thank you for joining us.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual participants. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions or views of Crafts Group LLC or Premier Needle Arts.
All the yarn, tools, and patterns mentioned in this episode, along with all the inspiration a knitter could need, can be found on our website at knitpicks.com.
If you'd like to be on our podcast, leave us a voicemail. We'll be checking it regularly and using your calls in later episodes. To leave a voicemail, call 360-334-4847 and record your message. You can also record a voice memo on your phone and email us the audio file at podcast@knitpicks.com.
Like and follow us on your favorite social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube at knitpicks.com.
Rate and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
Until next time, happy crafting!